Hello everyone and welcome. So we're here to meditate for 30 minutes. One of the associations many people have with Buddhist practice is that it's important not to become attached, that we're supposed to somehow let go of our attachments. And this, of course, has some truth to it, but it leads people to sometimes let go of things that don't need to be let go of. The things don't have to be let go of. It's our attachment to them that we let go of, and the clinging to them. But also, sometimes people confuse holding on to the things which are healthy and appropriate to hold, to have, to keep close, with attachment, with clinging. And there is a healthy way of holding things closely, to prioritize certain things, to emphasize certain things, to hold on to certain things in a non-clinging way. And one in this family of things that are sometimes not seen as appropriate is safeguarding. There are some things that are worth safeguarding, protecting, maintaining, and maybe even developing. And so wholesome qualities, wholesome sense of being alive and ways of being that feel peaceful and calm or wise or peaceful, joyful, happy. So in meditation sometimes there's a deepening sense of intimacy or calm or peace or inner well-being of some sort or other. Some people feel that they have a connection to a spiritual dimension of life, a Dharma dimension. And all these might be very wholesome to have, and part of the path of practice, something that supports the ongoing movement through Buddhist practice. And these should be safeguarded, protected to some degree, not with attachment, not with holding tight, or not with the kind of disappointment and grief if we lose them. But we also don't have to be casual about it. We don't have to they come and go as they wish. When we feel something positive, useful, significant through, say, meditation practice, through mindfulness practice, there's an art to keeping that close, to appreciate that this has priority in our life, and not to give it up easily by doing something that overrides it or pushes it to the side. Some of the things that we do in daily life maybe are not as important as the kind of spiritual connection we feel in meditation or when we're present and calm for our life. And so to safeguard that, to not give it up easily, is part of the art of this practice. So meditation can also be this way, that as we settle into meditation, we want to safeguard, protect the mindfulness that's developing, the sense of calm or subtleness that's coming. And so in meditation, we mostly watch our mind and are very careful not to become interested in thoughts and stories, ideas and feelings, which maybe has less value for us than staying close to the ongoing practice of meditation, being in the present mindfully with the breathing. So we're allowed to safeguard, we're allowed to prioritize, we're allowed to stay close to something and not give in to whatever whim that comes up in the mind. So, assuming a meditation posture and maybe rocking a little bit back and forth or forward and backwards in order to help you find a midpoint if you're sitting upright where you feel balanced and aligned in your body. If you're lying down, then maybe there's a way of adjusting your back or your shoulders or shoulder blades that makes it a little bit more comfortable or alert for you to be on your back. And lowering your gaze. And if it's comfortable for you, to close your eyes. And then as if you're gently stroking a cat or stroking someone's hair or gently cleaning a surface with a soft cloth, gently allow yourself to take a few deeper breaths. Maybe there's a smooth movement of breathing as you breathe in a little bit more deeply than usual, more fully than usual. Breathing in more deeply, and then a little longer exhale, a gentle kind of flow of releasing, letting go, and settling. And letting your breath return to normal. And continuing to relax. Maybe for every exhale, soften some part of your body. As you exhale, softening the thinking mind. Maybe a quieting of thinking. And somewhere within you, maybe somewhere deep within, below where you're thinking, below maybe even some of the difficult, maybe emotions if there are, might there be a place of calm or quiet, or a place of some kind of sweet intimacy or gentleness within, or some way of feeling, sensing yourself here, alive and breathing, that feels good to you, that's worth safeguarding. And to have that support your mindfulness and your present moment mindfulness, supporting staying close, maybe to a wordless place within, that has a wholesome quality or a welcome feeling of being alive and breathing. Perhaps safeguarding or protecting your attention to this place so it supports your ongoing practice of mindfulness. Safeguarding your practice is to not allow your mind to drift away in thoughts, concerns which are second best, at the best, to being here, close in, safeguarding a way of being that feels more connected or intimate. As we come to the end of this meditation, is there some way that you're settled or calm or quieter? Some way that your inner life has shifted or changed that feels satisfying or feels right, feels good to be this way? Maybe the mind is quieter and more grounded here in the present. And consider as you come to the end of this sitting, what are the ways that you can easily, appropriately safeguard how you're feeling? Keep it close in, close by, so it's not completely lost as you go on to the next thing that your life will be about. And as we finish this sitting, may whatever benefit we've received through this sitting, any way that we feel more settled or more connected or content, anything, any benefit we received, may we also consider how we can share that with the world, or how we can, based on that we might offer more kindness, friendliness, generosity to the people we encounter, that we somehow walk through the world benefiting the world with how we are, our friendliness, our kindness, our respect for others. May all beings be happy. May all beings be peaceful. May all beings be safe. And may all beings be free. And may we somehow contribute to that possibility. Thank you. So hello and welcome to the second talk on a 10-part series on the Pali word is translated into English as the protectors, that which we can rely on or call upon for a certain kind of protection, safeguarding, support. And these things support and safeguard our inner life and our outer life. And it's a way of living in the world protected from harm. Inner harm that we cause ourselves and outer harm. And so it's an interesting list that the Buddha came up with for this purpose. Yesterday it was virtuous conduct, that if we live with a life that doesn't harm others or harm ourselves, there is a kind of protection. We're protecting something that is protect-worthy in ourselves, the sense of compassion, care, respect we have for ourselves and others. And also we tend to lessen the anger, hostility, and even violence that others will harm that others will do to us. So today the second on the list is to be well learned. And the ancient language, the literal meaning is to have heard a lot. And why it says that is why it's worded that way is in the old in the time of the Buddha, there were no books, people weren't reading, and so the only way for learning something, information, was to hear it. So to have heard a lot means to be well learned, and so. For people who are doing Buddhist practice, I think this implies that learning about Buddhism, learning about the Dharma, and this can be, have benefits and be distractions to do this. Too much learning, too much studying of Buddhism, and it's a distraction. It becomes sometimes an abstract exercise in philosophy and doctrine. But there are many ways in which learning about the Dharma teaches us where to be oriented, the values we want to have, the practices we want to do, the ways of being in the world that protect us from ourselves and protect us from mitigating the possibility of harm from the world around us. So, for example, it's one thing to learn mindfulness. It's another thing to learn how mindfulness is integral to the Eightfold Path, to right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and then right concentration. That these, learning these and learning how to practice these or bring them forth into our life helps develop the mindfulness more strongly. It gives kind of feet to the mindfulness. It also shows us more of what we bring ourselves into the Dharma more completely, so that the mindfulness can be more effective. It can be more effective in recognizing what's going on inside of us, outside of ourselves, and so we're living a lifestyle that is more beneficial. So studying the Dharma and learning the Eightfold Path provides that kind of support. Some people come to Buddhism with erroneous ideas, some of them which can be harmful for them. I've known people who've come to Buddhism from a religion, the religion they grew up with, where the understanding was that if you were part of a religion, you had to believe everything the religion said, and there was no questioning it. So they come to Buddhism and they think, well, now I have to believe all of this. And some of Buddhism is hard to believe for many people, and so then they're struggling, and maybe I can't be a Buddhist. But if you study Buddhism, you realize quickly that there's no need to believe all of Buddhism. That Buddhism has a pragmatic, practical side that is the emphasis, which is we study Buddhism in order to help us on the path to liberation, to freedom from attachments. And we can a little bit pick and choose within Buddhism what we want to study, what helps us and supports us. There's a vast supply of teachings and practices in Buddhism. And then we are responsible for our own practice and how to navigate the different choices of practice and finding what is most useful for us, finding what teachings are most useful for us. So for example, learning well might be to learn not only mindfulness practice, but learn loving kindness practice, or compassion practice, or equanimity practice. And, um, and then knowing when those are useful to practice and when they're useful to support us. It's also helpful to learn that we don't have to believe all of Buddhism. Some people come to Buddhism and believe that the precepts are these hard and fast rules that if you commit yourself to the precepts, that if you break them, you're kind of doomed. It's kind of like you create so much bad karma or sin almost. If again, people coming with other religious ideas and using them to understand Buddhism. And in Buddhism, the precepts are actually literally called trainings. And so to learn, they're trainings rather than commandments can make a huge difference to how people approach Buddhism, Buddhist precepts. So part of learning is to learn the importance of the motivation for which we're practicing. And so then learning that motivation is very important. Then we do the inner work of ourselves. What is my motivation? Is my motivation useful? And what motivations does Buddhism encourage us to have? And why does it want the motivations, for example, to liberation from suffering? There are some people who feel like the end of suffering is not really spiritual even. The end of suffering is nice, it's therapeutic, but it doesn't connect us to what they think is a spiritual world of deities or cosmic ultimate meanings and different things. And but why does early Buddhism, put such a big emphasis on the end of suffering as being really the ultimate goal of the practice? And so that to really know that can help kind of refine how a person's involved in Buddhism, or maybe decide that Buddhism is not for them. They have other purposes they want. And there's other completely worthwhile religious practices, orientations that the person could have. But by learning the teachings of Buddhism, studying them, then a person can know, oh, this is actually not for me. And I think I would rather have some other approach to how to live my life. So to study well, and also in daily life, to not take things on faith, to not read something or learn something and have opinions about it without having studied it. I know in my life I've had opinions about things that I actually didn't know too much about. And then I felt quite quite concerned about myself that I would do this. And so one of the purposes of reading and studying is so that we don't rely on unfounded opinion. Even if opinions seem logical or seem like a lot of people believe them, there are all kinds of opinions that travel around our society, around politics and economics and racism and all kinds of things. Some of these opinions and ideas don't even present themselves as opinions and ideas. They're presented as a truth. And if some person of authority says them, then they must be true. But to go behind, underneath, and see where does the ideas come from and what history do they have. And it doesn't mean you have to do an extensive study of something, but even a small study of a kind of a summary of some of the background for some of the opinions people have can be eye-opening. And it can be safeguarding the truth, safeguarding ourselves from holding on to opinions tightly without really knowing. Or if we keep the opinion, then we're better informed. And so then we're safeguarding the truth. I think when we say, I have this on, I believe this because I read it in this book or heard this teacher say it. I believe it because I've reasoned it out, and my reasoning leads me to believe this. So the Buddha emphasized something called safeguarding the truth, being really clear about the basis upon which you have an opinion or a belief. And that's the same is true for Buddhism itself. On what basis do you believe your beliefs? Is it something you know from experience? Is it something you know from a book? And so to say that, as opposed to saying Buddhism says, or the Buddha said, you can say the Buddha said in a particular sutta. And that kind of creates a little context for what you're doing. So I like to think that this teaching on learning a lot, learning well, is a way from, not a way of becoming complicated and filling our head with ideas, but it's guided with the idea that if you study well, it actually allows the mind to become simpler, quieter, not simplistic, but wisely simple, wisely appreciating the depth and the great value of showing up with a simplicity of being, with mindfulness and care in situations of all the situations in our life. And so safeguarding our inner simplicity of being, our inner sense of being at home with ourselves, at peace with ourselves, and having studied to learn a little bit about the beliefs we have that take us away from that, and understanding a little bit how it's appropriate to find a simplicity of being to rest in and to be with, that there's so much goodness that flows from that, and the simplicity of being that protects some of the most beautiful qualities of who we are. And so they can be shared with the world. So I do recommend that people who want to do regular Buddhist practice spend a little bit of time, sometimes studying Buddhism, getting the basic ideas. And one of the consequences of that is that even if we don't understand all the teachings now, as the practice continues, as our practice matures, we'll be able to identify and recognize what's happening to us because we have the language, the context, the concepts to, oh, this is good, this is what's happening. So one example was that, I had learned a little bit about metta, kindness, loving kindness, just the ideas of it. And at some point in my meditation practice on retreat, this unusual feeling arose up in me. And at first I didn't know what it was. And then, but because I had learned about loving kindness, which I had no idea about before I started Buddhism, I said, oh, this is what it is. And having that simple recognition made it come alive and really let it grow for me. So part of the purpose of being well studied in Buddhism, well enough, is to learn the basic ideas so that when it's appropriate we can recognize them and see how they grow in us. So and again, one example would be to learn what the 7 factors of awakening are. And then as you practice, at some point each of these 7 factors of awakening might appear for you, and you can oh, this is what it is. This is useful. This is something to safeguard. So these of these 10 protectors, the second one now is being well studied, well learned, and then I'll continue with this series tomorrow. Thank you.